Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Before we dive into this week's dose, I want to bring up something really important to every subscription brand out there, and that is using email effectively. Now, we all know that email can be a powerful tool when you don't have a subscriber, but often we're worried about sending emails and what they will make customers do, like canceling. But the truth is that one of the biggest opportunities that subscription brands have to not only prevent cancellations, but also increase the average order value of their subscribers is to effectively leverage email. I want to introduce a new tool to you called Zamo. Zamo embeds one-click action links inside of your email so that customers can make a simple choice with a single click with no redirects and no changes, no redirecting to a portal or anything else like that. The beautiful thing is that Zamo can allow you to increase average order value while also decreasing churn, which they did in a recent A/B test that they ran with gains in bulk. They were able to embed a one-click action to skip an order, which prevented churn, lowering it by 22%, as well as one-click orders to subscriptions that increased the average order value by 37% inside of a test that they ran. So if you're interested in getting more from your emails and more from your subscribers, I highly suggest that you take a look at Zamo. I will have a link to the case study that I just mentioned for gains in bulk. And the beautiful thing is they run a 30-day free trial. They'll set up a campaign and test it with you to prove that it works. So go check out Zamo.com. And now back to the show. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman. This is the podcast where we try to help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm incredibly excited today to be joined by Sarah Williams. She is the queen of the subscription box space. If you don't know her, you will know her better after this episode, and I highly recommend giving her a follow regardless of the business you're in. Sarah, thank you for coming on the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. I should say, for anybody who doesn't necessarily know this or know my own journey into like consulting and launching a podcast and my own like content, I love content education, but a lot of what I've tried to do has actually been modeled after the business, at least, on the outside looking in about what I've seen you do for education and empowering the subscription space. So for me, this is very much like a full circle fun fanboy moment, but we'll definitely dive in this. For those of you who are on TikTok, Sarah and I also have been besties on TikTok for a while, trying to make fun videos and get more of the content out there. But so by way of introduction, Sarah first started with a subscription box called the Monogram Box, right? And then after the success of that and getting questions about how you've done that, decided to launch Your Box with Sarah. And so there's a podcast, tons of free resources for anybody I run into that's in a startup mode related to subscription box. I send them to your website, send them to your Instagram. So that's really kind of like a general high level view. But Sarah, I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about your journey, starting your own subscription box and what you've been doing with Launch Your Box with Sarah.
Yeah, so it really started, I had a brick and mortar store for a long time, and it was really, I was local based. I wasn't online at all. It was a gift shop. And so with that gift shop, we just personalized things. That was the niche that I was in. We monogram things, we personalized gifts. And that was really my niche. We would embroider, we would laser, we have a DTF machine. We personalize things in every way possible. And so for me, having the brick and mortar store, I was busy. I had really a cult-like following locally and still do. But I had this like kind of in the back of my head, I was watching another subscription box that did monograms, and I would follow them and I would like, oh, this is so cool. And I thought, I could do this, and I could do this very differently because I was seeing it was a very low price subscription, like a $25 subscription. And the products were just, let me be honest, they were crap. And I thought, people don't want crap. Like people want high quality items. And I kept watching it and I kept thinking I should do this. But in the back of my head, I wasn't online. I didn't know how to logistically set this up for myself. And so I was so busy with my brick and mortar store that I just kind of put it on the back burner for about a year and a half. I met with my web developer one day. I had a website but it just was like, here's my location, here's my store
Right.
hours, here's my phone
Here's
number.
how to
Like
find
that's
me.
all it
Yep.
was. And we were making some updates to the website. And he said, "Is there anything else I could do for you?" And this was like the first time like I had even told anyone about my idea, but I just blurted it out and I said, "I want to start a subscription box." And he was like, "What do you mean?" Like people don't like people outside of our world sometimes don't know what a subscription box is. So I kind of told him what I wanted to do. He goes, "Well, I can make that work on the back end. If you figure out what you want to put in it and how you're going to ship it, I can figure out the technical side of this." So within 3 months, I launched my subscription box, and it was really geared
Wow.
towards that customer I was seeing come into my shop. I would see them regularly, like once a month, a couple times a month. And what I kept hearing from them was, "You're always sold out," because I would post on social media, "You're always sold out by the time I got in here." And I
Hmm.
thought, I want to create something where they feel like the VIP of my business. I want
Yes.
it to be exclusive to them. I want it to be the first time that anyone see it so they don't feel like they didn't get into my shop on time. And that was really what I wanted to do. And I didn't have a lot of big dreams of getting it out into the country. I was really for my local customers still. Like that was who I had connected with. I got to know them as they would come shop in my store. And so it was really geared towards that person. So I launched the monogram box, and inside the box, very girly box. My top sellers in my business were apparel and beverage items like tumblers and things like that. And then
Okay.
also bags and totes. So those are my top three categories. So that's really what I decided that I was going to put in my subscription box because I already had this proof of concept already. Those were already my best sellers, Matt. And so it was like very easy for me to put this into a
Right.
subscription box. And then when I thought about pricing, I looked at my average order value. Like, what did people spend when they came into my shop on average? And it was about $40 at that time. This was like 2016. And so I thought, okay, I need to price it at $40. I already have data and history that shows me that's what they spend when they come in. Um, Graphic tees, bags and totes, tumblers, and accessories. That's what was going to go in it. And that's how I started my subscription box.
I love that, and it's so interesting. Like so many questions coming at, or like I'd love to just put that up on a whiteboard and show people, like you're doing, offer validation. Like it's so funny when I do audits. One of the simplest things I do is just look at top selling products and then see if
Yeah.
those are actually being upsold effectively in other parts of the program. It's like tip of the iceberg stuff. But I'm curious then with some of the things you mentioned and talking about like the resources you have and how you've done launch your box with Sarah. I'm really curious about like what are tips for people that don't have a physical store in hand because they need to validate the idea, they need to build an audience, they need to do those things. And again, knowing that this is part of like your launch your box with Sarah
Mhm.
program, I'd love to hear your insight on that. Like, how do people get started or get going in that?
So, if you had a brick and mortar or you have an e-commerce shop or you're selling products, you already have data. And so you can use that to start. If you don't have that, that's where we have to figure out who our ideal customer is first. And that's the first thing that I really want you to hone in on is who is the person you want to sell to? And maybe you think about who's in your circle or who can you market to or who are you going to align with? And a lot of times it has to do with our hobbies and interests. It has to do with who we are and the things that we like. And that's the easiest way to get started. It's harder for me, like, mom of two teenagers. I live in Texas. For me to go start a men's subscription, that would be really hard for
Right.
me because that's not who I am and that's not who I relate to. So I really challenge people to think about what are your passions? What are your interests? What could you talk about nonstop if somebody stopped you on the street? That's really what you should dig into. And so who do you want to sell to? Do you want to sell to people like you? Because it's a lot easier for us to sell to people like us than it is for us to create this whole new
Right.
um, person, this whole new audience. Because in reality, Matt, we've been networking our whole life. We've been audience building our whole life. Who's on our friends list? Who do we follow? What are our interests? That's where you should get started. And once you figure out what that is, I want you to niche down into something specific. So I could be for all moms. I could be for all women. I could be, I could be for everyone, but I'm very specific in who I'm for. It's typically that Southern busy mom. That is my ideal customer. I say Southern because in the South, we like monograms. If it's not personalized, it's not really ours. And that's
Ah,
kind of
okay,
our
that makes
saying in the
sense.
South.
Okay,
Not that I don't, I have subscribers in all but two
from all over,
states,
but getting
but that's
specific
who
like
I'm,
that, yeah.
yeah, that's who I market to. That's who I'm making my subscription box for. And people from all over the country are subscribing at this point. But in the South, we love monograms. And that's really where I had to start. I wanted to create not just a generic subscription box for women, but a monogram box. And that's how I niched down my product. Um, and when I say busy moms, I'm thinking about all the women in the world that do for other people. We're caregivers. We typically don't do for ourselves. And that's part of my messaging. This is a gift to yourself. It has your initials on it. You can't give it to your friends and family. It has your initials on it. So this is for all those people that caregive for other people. Typically our moms, typically our children with older parents that they're caregiving for because they're doing for other people all the time. And that's how
Right.
we niche down. So thinking about, all the different niches in the world, like I could just rattle off tons of different really niche
One of
down
my
things.
favorite ones is actually somebody's gone through your program is the guinea pig box. When
Yeah.
I first introduced that a few years ago, to me that was just so wild that it's just a box for people that own guinea pigs. Like that's
Yeah.
very, very specific, right? Yeah.
I love to talk about Amanda that has a planner subscription for a very specific one type of planner. It's called a Hobonichi planner. I'd never heard of it
Interesting.
before. And she created a subscription box for people that use a Hobonichi planner. And she was just on
Love it.
YouTube and this is how she built her audience. She loved this planner. So she would get on YouTube and she would fill out her planner for the month and she'd just be on YouTube, filling out all the things in her planner and showing people. Well, she was making stickers for her own planner at the time. And so she started to get followers that had this specific planner and were watching her plan. And they started asking her, how do I get stickers like that for my planner? They fit the boxes perfectly. The
Right.
pages you're making fit the planner perfectly. So she started a subscription. She had 300 YouTube followers, launched her subscription on YouTube, and she got 100 box subscribers and sold out in her first launch. She didn't need everybody. She didn't need to
Right.
provide products for every planner type out there.
Right.
It was very specific, and that's how she found her people. That's how she built her audience, and that's how she continues to thrive. And now she has subscriptions for other planners, but it's very specific, and that's the key: is figuring out who you want to be for, and then let's start engaging with them. It's not about marketing to them, but it's about engaging with them, creating content that they're going to enjoy, and really getting them into our world before we ever start to sell to them.
Do you feel like the best way then is like to actually be creating content and finding a place to be using your voice, or is it about also being local if you can? Like, I mean, I some of the things I've done is, I'm going into Facebook groups, I'm going into other like communities to try to get feedback from people based off of like my target ICP. Is that what you're saying? Like, whether it's
Yeah.
YouTube, whether it's Instagram, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a TikTok, trying to create some content and see if there's an audience for your niche.
Absolutely. Like when we're starting socials from scratch, it's really challenging because it's like watching grass grow. And I did the same thing when I started Launch Your Box. I didn't have an audience full of entrepreneurs wanting to start a subscription box. I only had an audience of these Southern busy moms that liked my cute things. And so for me, I had to create content. And I'll kind of give you the concept of how I grew my audience, but it's starting socials and it's starting with, not some cheesy words of like what you want to name something, but getting SEO in the title of your social media. My social media is how to start a subscription box. And so
Right.
I had to okay, that's the first piece. And I can change that along the way, but that's how I started to find people. And then, or people started to find me, right? When they're searching subscription box on social media, I'm coming up. And then it was
Hmm.
creating content where I could attract people to my page. So for me, I'm a big proponent of live video. So can I go live? I go live every Monday. It's called Monday Momentum. And I give one little tidbit of how you can, do something in your business for the week. So it was getting my face out there. It's letting people get to know me, letting people understand the knowledge that I have. I also, in the very beginning, I created an ebook. I just did it on Canva. It's a 14-page ebook. It's called Subscription Box Blueprint. And I just walk through very general uh, blueprint plan of how to start a subscription box because it
Hmm.
needed to be specific. If I wrote a blueprint on how to start a business, I wouldn't have found my ideal customer, right?
Right.
So it needed to be very specific to what I was doing. And when we think about subscription boxes, it could be, if you're having a pet box, is how to care for your pet's bedding. Like, how often should I wash it? What detergent should I use? Like we could create resources that would attract our ideal customer before we ever want to sell to them. And that's what I did with this ebook. I sold it for $10. I created what I call an SLO, a self-liquidating offer. And so the goal was every $10 that I made from that, I would put that back in my ad spend. And so it was
Right.
self-funding the ad because I didn't have any money in the business yet. I didn't have, a lot of money, and I didn't want to take money from my subscription box business to fund the coaching business. So that's how I funded my first ad. And that one ebook, it's been several years, it's been 5 years now, but we've had over 50,000 people purchase that ebook. That's
Oh, wow.
50,000 people on my email list that is my perfect person over the last 5 years
Right.
from one piece of content that I created. And you can do that in your business. I could do that with a style guide on how to style your graphic tee. I could do that with what's the order of a monogram. A lot of people that aren't familiar with monograms don't understand why the middle initial is your last name and it's bigger than the other initials. And what do I do if I want to put, a married like monogram? What goes first? The
Okay.
the the
Right.
wife's initial, the and so you could make a whole guide on what a monogram is and what does it mean and where did it come from, and let people opt in. It could be free opt-ins, it could be paid opt-ins, but we have to create content to attract the person that we then want to sell to. So how can we
Absolutely.
serve those people? And it's providing resources. And you can even do something fun like I do. Nobody needs anything. I'm not teaching anything in my subscription box, right? It's all fun and girly. But something that I do is I take one of the designs from my t-shirts and I'll make a phone wallpaper from it. So
Okay.
they're opting in to get a free phone wallpaper on their phone. And it's actually my t-shirt design. So if they like that design, I know they're going to like my t-shirt. And then the automation on that opt-in is for them to join my t-shirt club. And so we
Okay.
just have to get out of our head about, we can't just show up and sell to people. How do we attract people and serve them first? And then we ask for the sale.
Well, and honestly, like as a marketer with a lot of marketing background, like a lot of what you're talking about and what you're doing is like the fundamentals of like just trying to give something. There's an opt-in, there's a follow-up, and another offer. It's not like rocket science in that sense. It's actually what makes it brilliant though is like focusing on that niche of like
Mm-hmm.
just trying to figure out ways that are offering value, trying to identify and resonate with your ICP, with your ideal customer, I should say. Um, that I mean, I that's why I love it. I think very really really effective to do that. I'm curious then with like getting a little bit deeper into some of the work you do with Launch Your Box with Sarah. I know you have like a subscription boot camp, right? So I'd love to hear more about some of that work you're doing. And that was just recently, just a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah. So it's called Subscription Box Week. And again, it's one of those SLO offers that I do every year to attract my ideal customer. So I charge $15 for the week. And, it came from an idea. I was sitting with my mentor, Stu McLaren, who I'm in his mastermind, and I had started Launch Your Box. I had about 100 members at this point. And I looked at him and I said, how do I get more people to join my membership? And it was such a simple question and such a simple answer, but it got my wheels turning. He said, well, what would make them join? What would make them want to join? And I just really said casually and flippantly, like, well, if they could come hang out with me for a week, they'd want to join. Like that was just my reaction. I was like, well, if they just need to hang out with me, they'd want to be a part of my membership. He goes, how do you make that happen? And he walked away. And I was sitting there like, what? And so that's where I created Subscription Box Week. And it was a way for them to come hang out with me for a week. And I really gave them some wins. I gave them some knowledge. I shared my expertise with them. I loved on them. I answered comments nonstop. I went live 2 or 3 times a day in this group so they could really understand who I was, what value I could offer them, and how I could help them on their subscription box journey. And so we started Subscription Box Week in the fall of 2020, and we've done it 6 times since. And I
Okay.
just did that last month. We had About 1,800 people join us for Subscription
Oh,
Box
wow.
Week, and we welcomed in over 800 of them into Launch Your Box at the end of that week. So
That's
I
a
just
phenomenal
needed
opt-in.
to spend some time with them to show them what was possible. And that was the highest conversion rate for me. I had a 43% conversion rate on that week, and that's unheard of in our industry.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
nuts.
what I know from that is that people want to feel connected to what their money goes to, whether that's coaching, whether that's a subscription box reoccurring every single month. People don't want to shop with brands that they don't know. There's convenience involved when we talk about Amazon and things like that,
Right.
but your conversion power comes from your know, like, and trust factor. And
Mm,
when you can serve your audience in a way that helps them, you're going to convert higher every single time, whether that's a product or a service subscription. It doesn't matter. And so, as small business owners, I talk about that's one of our superpowers. We have the power to connect with our audience in a way that these big brands
bigger
don't.
brands can't. Yep.
They can't, and we
Right.
need to take that opportunity and use it to our advantage.
Sorry, I can't remember who was saying this. Maybe it was on another podcast, the Awesome Pod or something. They were talking about Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, that he should be doing more like personal videos about like business
Yeah.
building and brand building and stuff like that, and that would get a ton of more people engaged than maybe some of their other ad strategies. But it's funny. I actually have gotten that advice recently as well from. I've been in the process of hiring a social media manager, and one of them was telling me, hey, you should spend some more time just being a little more personal on some of your socials because you're just coming across as like, and yes, it's good, value, 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 but it's like, hey, here's how to do better on your subscription over and over and over again, instead of more about like, this is who I am as a person, why I think the way I do, why I believe and feel. And I wrote down, I had to write down that no like trust factor. So that's really, really good. I'm really curious with a lot of the brands that you work with, what are some of the problems that a lot of them, within that first couple hundred, maybe to that first 1,000 subscribers, what are some of the problems that brands are running into, and how should they fix them?
I think challenge wise, a lot of small businesses are really scared of Facebook ads and advertising in general. And I think it's something you have to dig into right away, because one of the number one things that we have to do as small business owners is we have to get visible, period.
Hmm.
And if we're not visible, no one's going to know about us. We can have the best subscription box out there, but if nobody sees it, if nobody knows about it, we're not going to get anywhere with it. And so we have to dig into different ways, and we can do a lot organically. I'm a very big proponent of organic and paid advertising. Like,
Right.
efforts on social media. Like, I don't think you should go all paid. I think that's terrible for your business. And I don't think you should go all organic. I don't think you're going to grow very fast. So we have to find that sweet spot between organic and paid advertising, and content, and how we can really get into that. And the sooner you can really dig into that, the better off you're going to be. Your audience is going to grow quicker as you're prepping to launch your subscription box. And then when you actually launch, you're going to have more people to launch to, and you're already familiar. The algorithm has already picked up on who your person is. So when you start doing that, you're going to find that person easier than if you just start ads when you launch. Like, we need to do that to build our audience too. And we can't be afraid
Right.
of that. The problem is there's no ROI on that, because I'm just doing ads to build my audience and I'm not getting any return on that. You have to remember it's a long-term play. We're going to get return on it later. You can't launch to
Right.
no one. And that's the
Right.
one of the big challenges I see in the beginning, is that we don't get ourselves visible enough.
No, I really, really like that. Okay. And that's actually something I ran into with my own newsletters. Like, I ran some paid ads at the beginning of the year, doubled our audience size, but then also felt like, hey, how do I try to manage this? I was trying like some email nurturing, like some upsell stuff, and it wasn't quite right yet right there. So we're actually like relaunching with an ebook and a video course offer that I'll be able to give as well as upsells for that. And so, yeah, that's, and again, I think it's what's so interesting is like, you're talking about a subscription and membership model program to train subscription businesses as well. So there's like a lot of like resonance and
There's a lot of
similarity
crossover.
here. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
crossover.
Because it's all
Then
reoccurring revenue. It's all the same concept. You just have to apply it to your product-based business or more of your digital service-based business. Either
right,
way, it's the same concepts. And I think a lot of times we think we have to jump through hoops. We always have to do the next best thing or what somebody else is doing, or let me go viral. But in actuality, we just need to go back to the basics. What builds our
Right.
business in the beginning will help us continue to build our business going forward. We just have to get consistent at something, and we have to experiment. Like, marketing changes so much. We have to continue to experiment with what's working, because Matt, what's working for me right now might not be working for you. And so we have to
Right.
be comfortable with trying something new when something's not working, because spoiler alert, like, things are going to stop working. What works now might not work in 6 months. And you have to be open and
Mhm.
willing to experiment with that and not be so afraid, like, oh, if this doesn't work, I'm going to lose all this money. No, if it doesn't
Right.
work, you're going to learn.
Right. Well, that's what's been happening with the video courses. I have about 20 people taking it and giving feedback right now. And my initial assumption was like, hey, maybe I need to redo the videos if they don't make sense or somebody doesn't understand them. And yet, like 99% of the feedback so far is, okay, I need more resources. I need a checklist to go with this. I need a blueprint or something like that. I'm like, okay, well, I've got some of that, so I can use that already. But it's interesting. Like, that feedback allows me to create more things that's going to enhance that offering, but that I could also use a lot of those things as teasers to get people into that offer in the first place, right? If I'm
Yeah.
checklist, blueprint, anything like that. So I'm curious too, like, so we talked about some of the problem, like, okay, so people are scared of being Facebook ads. Like, are there other opportunities or things that you're seeing that works really, really well when it comes to like building up a subscription-based business that we haven't necessarily covered yet?
I think email is our gold. Like, I
Yeah.
call email our ATM machine. And I think we have to start building an email list right away when we start a business. And if you're in business and you haven't built an email list, it's never too late to start one. So I think
Right.
that um, your email list is very important. List building on every level should be a constant every month activity. Like, if you wake up this next Monday and say, what can I do to build my audience and my list this week? You're going to keep growing. So how can you continually build your audience? Because once you stop growing, you start dying. And things are going to get stagnant real quick, because we can only put our subscription box offer out there to the same person so many
So
times
many
before
times.
they
Right.
unsubscribe or stop following us. If they haven't gotten in at this point, like, they're not interested. So we're getting cancellations every month, right? So that's just a part of our business. As a reoccurring business, we're going to have cancellations, period. And you can't let that affect your energy. We just have to constantly be getting in front of new people. And the other side of this is that we've got to focus on our retention, because if your monthly focus is on acquisition and you lose sight of retaining you're just going to be filling this leaky bucket every
Right.
month. So there has to be a fine balance between acquisition and retention, so that we're growing and not keeping level. And that's the goal here. But that also comes with audience building. So if we're not focused on list building and audience building on a regular basis, we're going to have higher acquisition costs, and our churn's going to outgrow us. Like, if
Right.
I'm losing 50 subscribers a month and I'm only getting 20 subscribers a month in acquisitions, that means I've got a deficit of 30 subscribers a month. And if you look at 6 months from now, I'm going to have a whole lot of products sitting at my warehouse that I haven't sold. And every stack, every pallet there is hundreds or thousands of dollars. And so that's really going to affect us. So we have to be proactive with that and really work on our audience building. And that's an every month activity. So what ads are you running right now to build your list and to build your audience? What are you doing to get in front of new people like me? I'm on Matt's podcast right now. I'm getting in front of a new audience so people get to know me. So what am I actively doing every single month to get in front of new audiences? You talked about it a minute ago. You're in groups, you're getting yourself out there. And we have to do that in any way possible for our product-based business or our service-based business. It's, can I collab on a giveaway with somebody that sells items that busy Southern moms like, but it's not the same as mine? Can I do an event? I just did an event called Jingle and Mingle, and it was a big event. It was crafting and shopping, and
Okay.
I was a presenter during that got me in front of all these like crafting ladies. They would love t-shirts. They would love
Right.
these cute gifts, but I was a part of that. So how do we position ourselves to collab with other people, to get in front of other audiences? And how do we build audiences ourselves through our ads and our content that we're creating? That could be another platform. That could be launching a podcast. That could be getting on a YouTube channel. That could be being on TikTok. Wherever you're not, that's an opportunity for you to get in front of new audiences.
Oh, I love that. That is so great. Okay, so you brought up retention, and so maybe just think of this as kind of like maybe a final question, regardless of subscription box, regardless of subscribe and save, regardless of digital membership or digital subscriptions. How do you view retention? Like, how do you approach that of trying to keep people engaged or keep people like, is it offers, is it discounts? What is your philosophy to a great retention program?
I hate discounts. I am the
I
most
do too.
anti-discount person you will ever meet. You won't see discounts running from my shop very, very little. Um, and so for me, it is engagement because I think that's our number one retention tool, whether that's on the product side of the business or the coaching side of the business. How can we keep people engaged? And for the coaching, it's how do I keep them engaged and how do I keep them making progress, right? If they're making money, if they're having wins, they're going to stay a part of my program because it's working, right? For the product based business, it's really about them being a part of something bigger than themselves. So how do I engage them when I'm live? I'm like, hey, subscribers, we're going to do a box reveal. Let me know which subscription you have. And they'll be in the chat. Tell me what your favorite item was in this box. It's surveys that I send out to
Hmm.
them. Like, um, you know, what do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? How can I make this better for you? And it's always getting their feedback and making them feel like they're part of the subscription. It might be like a this or that. Hey, I'm thinking about this or that for the August subscription. Which color? And I'm not going to show them because my box is a mystery, but it might be pink or purple. You vote on your favorite color and they feel like they're part of
Right.
creating that subscription. And that gives them bigger buy-in to what you're doing. I also take them along the journey of my curation process. Always tell them how the box started. I started like with July. I just started with this beach towel. I had a custom colors. These are the colors I selected. This is why I selected it. Then I had this custom made to go with it. And then I made this so we could put a monogram on it. And I take them along that journey, that behind the scenes journey. And we don't do that often enough in our businesses. It could be from packing day. Like this is how your subscription box gets out the door, from pulling stuff off the FedEx truck to packing it to getting it on another FedEx truck. Like this is the monogramming process. Do you know that we do 3,000 monograms every single month? And this is the process of your item being customized for you, and just
I love that.
showing them that behind the scenes of what it takes to get every box customized every single month. And I think if we can show them how that happens. A lot of times I'll show them me drawing on my iPad. That's the t-shirt design for next month. And they're going to see that I created that and they have more buy-in for that.
Hmm.
And so how do we go through the process of curating and how can we share that with our subscribers? Because that's where the retention lies. They want to be bought into something that's bigger than themselves. They could care less about the beach towel and the monogram visor and the cute t-shirt. They love those things, but they love the process of it. So how can you get them into the process of what you're doing in your subscription box? If you have a dog subscription, like I chose these treats because this is going to help them with their teeth. This is going to help them here. This is why I curated this. And then this particular toy is great for this. Like all the things that we put in our subscription boxes needs to be shown. Like there's a story that needs to be told with all of that.
Yeah, there's like fireworks going off in my head. I'm thinking of so many different subscription brands of different experiences, whether it's like, yeah, you're talking about like, say if it's like, Almost Pride with raw pet food, like talk, like you could show how it's made, right? To show how fresh and real that is, right? Like
Absolutely.
matcha tea, like where that tea actually comes from with these green
Mhm.
fields in Japan and things like that. And then also the Milk Bar Club, like they do that, like their whole subscription experience is just like the founder and the head chef discussing recipes and how they develop this one that's coming to their subscribers before it's released on the full site. And it's just so funny because everything you're listing goes against what is unfortunately a really common approach in a lot of subscribe and save programs, which is this set and forget mentality. You don't want to email people because you don't want to remind them to have a
Remind them that they're paying
subscription.
for this.
Right. Right.
But
But
how
the
awesome
reality
is
is,
it?
yeah, your
How
approach
awesome.
is more like stickier, more engagement. And then also,
Yeah.
I would argue that also gives you opportunities for more upsells, for getting more product, like boosting the AOV of that because they're
Yes.
adding things to that. They're wanting to extend their subscription because of those things. So I think it's very much an opposite approach, but I think that in the end, that one's much, much more sustainable and healthier for a
When you
business.
think about subscribe and save things, like, it's that coffee subscription that I'm addicted to, that if I ever ran out of this, it would not be a good day around the office, right? Like, how do we remind them of the benefits of having that auto ship for us? And I
Right.
think if we can continue to do that, like, even like I have the farmer's dog subscription for my dogs. It's the food that comes in the packages that are frozen and they show up at your door. Like, how convenient is that for me to never have to go buy dog food or never have to run out and I have this fresh dog food. And it's really about the benefits of that dog food versus the dry dog food that our dogs eat for their entire life. Like, can you imagine eating this dry dog food for your entire life and how that's affecting their skin and their hair and the nutrients? Like, if we can remind people why we subscribe to that in the beginning, it's going to create a higher
Right.
LTV for that subscriber.
I agree. And that's, again, like without necessarily going down too far down that rabbit hole of why I am a huge proponent of like information gathering, like post purchase surveys and periodic check ins. Like, you want to know the reasons why people are subscribed more than just where they came from, right? Like, what are they hoping for, their goals, dreams, plans for something like this? Because that
Yeah.
gives you an opportunity to remind them of why this coffee or this pet food or this supplement like helps them actualize that goal or that plan or that
Right.
dream.
And that's a retention play. It's
Yeah.
a retention play so that you're not having to spend so much money acquiring the next person that you might keep for 8 months. If we focused on keeping them for 18 months, it's going to, like, our money, our profit margin is going to be so much higher than just worrying about how I'm going to acquire the next person and the next person. How can I put my money into content that's going to keep my subscriber longer?
Right. And that's such an interesting idea as well. Like, I want to find people that are going to stick on this for 18 months, not 8 months or 8 weeks, which is unfortunately what happens for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
realistically, it's going to be, unless it's like the perfect alignment of exactly what they need and they're never going to want to hear from you again, it's really going to come down to like an ongoing engagement and investment. Because especially with like shifting tides, economic, all the different financial constraints, people will start questioning whether they need something or whether they want
Right.
something in their life because there's other ways to get some of what those how they're solving that problem.
And here's the reality of it, Matt, and everybody could probably say this themselves, is that there is nothing in my subscription box that you can't go find at Target or Hobby Lobby or TJ Maxx or anywhere else in the world. There is nothing.
Interesting.
There is nothing you need in my subscription box. But I keep my subscribers on average for 19 months for an $80 subscription. And that right there tells me it's more than just the box. It's more
Right.
than just the stuff. It's about the environment that I'm creating. It's about the experience that I'm creating when that box shows up on that door. And it's about the way that I engage with my audience and the way that I'm connecting to them. My t-shirt subscription, I have an average of 14 months. They're getting 14 t-shirts. And they could get a t-shirt. How many places in this world can they get a t-shirt? Everywhere
Right.
you turn around, you can get a t-shirt. There is nothing special about what I'm delivering, but what I try to deliver is a complete experience on gifting to yourself, treating yourself. This is why you should treat yourself. This is how you make someone feel when they
Right.
open that box is everything about your LTV. And that's what we need to focus on. It's not about that stuff. It's about the feeling they get when they open it and how do we remind them of that feeling? And that's what we need to do with our content is remind them about that feeling. And if you can really think about that in your own business, you're going to increase your retention and reduce your churn very, very easily.
Well, I think I'm going to leave it at that. How people feel when they open the box is a direct reflection of LTV is pretty fundamental. We'll
Yeah.
call that a mic drop moment. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to put a link to your website and podcast in the show notes for anybody. I highly recommend checking out her content for resources for anybody who's building a subscription business, especially if it's a subscription box business. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, it's always a pleasure to talk subscription stuff with you.
Thanks, Matt. It's great being here.
Great. And that's it for this week's dose. Stay tuned for next week for another episode of Subscription Prescription. And one more thing before I sign off, I'd want to urge you again to go check out Zamo.com. Look at that case study that they ran for Gains in Bulk about improving average order value, decreasing churn. There is no reason why you shouldn't be leveraging emails to prevent cancellations and improving the lifetime value of your subscriber. So go to Zamo.com today. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.